Okay, welcome back. So, if you saw my last video, you saw me talking a lot about Jodie Whittaker and the Wheel of Time. Because I love the Wheel of Time. I love the Wheel of Time TV show, and I love Jodie Whittaker as an actor. I would love to have Jodie Whittaker in the show. I have absolutely no power to make that happen. So, instead of just thinking about it, I decided to make a video, or 2 videos about it. The last video was my top 10 through 6 roles that I would like her to play. This is my top 5 through 1 of roles from the Wheel of Time that I think that she would be perfect for. So, okay, I was about to say let's get into it, but no, first I have to give a spoiler warning. In order to talk about these roles, I am going to be spoiling things from the entire series. So, if you are spoiler averse and you have not read the Wheel of Time book series, I cannot recommend this video. I'm sorry. But if you have read the book series or you don't care about spoilers, which I have been informed constantly in my comments that some people don't care. If you don't care about spoilers, or if you finish the series, I guess let's go.
Let's be nerdy, yeah. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy, yeah.
My top 5, so let's begin with number 5. My number 5 role that I think Jodie Whittaker could play. I went back and forth on this one for quite a while, trying to decide between Sulin and Amis. So obviously both of them are on my list, but it took quite a bit of thinking to decide which one of those characters would make my top 10. Amis is an Ariel wise one who used to be a maiden of the spear. She used to be a warrior. She can channel quite strongly, and she's a dreamwalker. She trains Egwene, and she works with Rand. She is a pretty major character. Sulin, on the other hand, she is currently a maiden of the spear, so she is a warrior right now. She cannot use the one power, but she is a fierce warrior, and she spends time protecting Rand and fighting alongside Perrin, who are major characters in Wheel of Time. She's a pretty awesome character in her own right. So for me, what this decision came down to was comedy. Jodie Whittaker has great comedy chops. Do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Comedy chops. And so I went with Sulin. Sulin has that bit in her story where she incurs some tow, to use the parlance of the Ariel, and so to discharge her debt, her obligation, she takes on the role of a servant. And it's a classic a fish out of water story. Sulin is a maiden of the spear, so we are used to seeing her in her Ariel garb, her Cadansor. And now she is wearing the clothing of a servant in a royal court and trying to learn and navigate royal etiquette. And I want someone in this role who has good comedic instincts and good comedic timing, and Jodie Whittaker has both. There are moments in Doctor Who where she has made me laugh out loud. And other other movies of hers, Get Carter, she's funny in that too. St. Trinians, 1 and 2. Her role in those is pretty small, but she's bloody hilarious. And what's another Adult Life Skills. It's a great movie. It's a comedy about grief and death. really, it is a comedy. But anyway, okay, it's a really great movie, and she's hilarious and touching in it. And comedic actors can, at least as far as I've seen, they can usually do drama, but dramatic actors often can't pull off comedy. But I've seen Jodie do both, and I've seen her do both really, really well. The next entry on my list is probably going to be my most controversial. But whenever I find myself thinking about it, I get so excited about the possibility because I think it would be such a cool idea. Okay, so here goes. Hear me out. I think Jodie would make an amazing Jane Farstrider. Now, as I've said, this one's probably going to be the most controversial. Like, for those of you who've read the books, you probably already have a somewhat puzzled look on your face, trying to figure out how this could work. Because, obviously, first of all, in the books, Jane is a man. But if you watch my previous video on this, you know that I don't have a problem really changing that for the show, as long as the character's gender isn't an essential part of that character's arc. Like, you'll notice that I haven't fan cast Jodie as any male channelers, because in the world of the Wheel of Time, gender does impact your ability to channel the one power, and that's a pretty integral part of this world and the story, so yeah, I'm not planning to or wanting to change that. Jane's gender, on the other hand, doesn't really have an impact on his particular story, but I do think it has like a meta impact on the story that, alright, we'll get to that in a bit. The other part of Jane that makes fan casting Jodie in that role kind of odd is age. Jane Farstrider is old. Like, he's really old. He's old enough to have traveled around the world and to have written a book that in subsequent years has become famous and ubiquitous all over the Westlands. He's also old enough in the books to have played a part in the fall of Malkir, Lan's kingdom, which fell when Lan was an infant. Jodie Whittaker and Daniel Henney, the actor who's playing Lan, are pretty close in age. Like, I think they're maybe 3 years apart, so yeah, that is a hurdle to overcome. And, okay, gonna be honest here, I don't really have any specific idea for how to fix or overcome that hurdle. I just know that the character of Jane Farstrider, or Noel, as he calls himself, I can see Jodie in that role. I can see Jodie saving Matt from the golem and then traveling with him, telling crazy stories over dinner about things that she's experienced in her travels, things that no one believes because no one knows that she's Jane Farstrider, and she's weird, and she's quirky, and she says odd and inappropriate things, but she's exactly who you want by your side in a pinch because she's got tricks up her sleeve that no one else has thought of. I can fully see Jodie in this role. She fits. Now, I will say that I think the show is already planning on changing the gender of Jane based on a line from the show, I think that's episode 5, where Rand says that Egwene thought that she was Jane herself, reincarnated. And, okay, I've been in a few conversations where we tried to debate and parse the grammar of that line, but my opinion, my personal take on this is the phrasing, Jane herself, does make it very much sound like that it is Jane that is the herself in that sentence. And I think the reasoning for this is, okay, well, for me, it would be to, I don't know if I want to say fix something, but it would be to update something from the books that feels hella dated right now, and that is the rescue of Moraine. Now, I love that rescue. It is amazing. Like, we have books and books of build-up and foreshadowing, and it all comes to fruition, and it is so satisfying, but that's Moraine. That is Moraine, who is the impetus for this entire story. It is Moraine motherfucking Damodred, and she is reduced to a damsel in distress in this moment. She's a damsel in distress who is rescued and then ends up swooning on the lap of oldie McMustache, and it feels so dated, it feels old-fashioned, it almost feels out of place in the Wheel of Time, if I'm honest. She's had her power drained from her, so she can barely channel unless she's wearing that sangreal, and she was rescued by 3 big, strong men, one of whom she is somehow in love with, despite the fact that she hasn't seen him since book 3, and there was only like one time we saw them together in that book, and it was like a 5-minute conversation. Changing Jane from a man to a woman just changes the optics of that moment enough that I think it would feel a little less jarring, a little less helpless princess in the tower. Even though Moraine is still helpless, it would feel better. So yeah, if they're already going to change Jane Farstrider's gender, and they could figure out something with her backstory, to cover for the age issue, Jodie would kill in that role. Okay, now we are down to number 3 on my list. Number 3 is, I think, my favorite secondary character, outside of Varen. I mean, come on, everybody loves Varen. Varen is everybody's favorite, and Varen almost doesn't really qualify as a secondary character, but, okay, whatever. Outside of Varen, my favorite secondary or side character is Egyanen. I love Egyanen. She has one of the most intriguing and gratifying arcs in the entire series, in my opinion. She comes in as a soldier, a badass, like she's a badass fighter, but she is basically just a cog in the fascist machinery that is the Shan-Chan Empire. She fully buys into all of their bullshit. She believes that slavery is just a logical and right institution, that channelers should all be enslaved. She buys into the hierarchy and the strict rules of the system that she was born into. And then she gets left behind when the Shan-Chan are routed at Falma, and we see her trying to exist in a world that doesn't seem to believe any of that nonsense, and we see her worldview get challenged over and over and over again. First by her friendship with Nynaeve and Elaine, and then by the realization that the method that the Seanchan used to enslave female channelers is, well, it's built on a lie. And then there's another part of this that doesn't really get talked about, but her romance with Bail Domon. And, okay, as I'm talking now, I just realized I have fan cast both members of this romantic pairing as Jodie Whittaker. And, oh, sorry. That was a fun mental image I just made for myself. Moving on. Anyway, okay. At some point, in order to rescue Bail Domon from other Seanchan, she buys him, like as a slave. So in her mind, she owns him. But he, of course, refuses to behave like a slave because he's from the Westlands. And for him, the idea of owning a human, it doesn't make any sense. And so his refusal to accept his enslavement, it also rocks her worldview. I mean, oh, come on. The arc that she goes on, she comes into the story thinking that female channelers are subhuman, not worthy of freedom or rights or any autonomy, and at the end of the series, she has pledged herself in service to a female channeler. And not just any female channeler, the freaking Amelin seat. Like, that is an arc. It's such a beautiful and satisfying story arc. And watching her through it, trying to adapt and adjust to what, for her, must feel like a constantly shifting foundation to her world. Almost every single time we see her in the book, something major happens to her where we see her have to completely readjust her worldview. That can't be easy, but she does it. Egeanin is freaking amazing. And because she's so amazing, or because I think she's so amazing, I just want an amazing actor to play her. And Jodie definitely fits the bill. I think Jodie could show that strength that Egeanin has, but also that struggle that she has as she is constantly trying to adapt to a world that keeps changing around her. Or, okay, no, not the world. The world isn't changing. Egeanin is changing, but because the world keeps challenging all of the beliefs that she's held to be true. She's having to remake herself constantly, rebuild her core beliefs brick by brick, and I think Jodie has the ability to show that. I'm also going to say this, I don't think she's ever been described as wearing leather, but I probably have put up a lot of pictures of Jodie in leather because whenever I see Jodie in leather, like in a leather jacket, or there's one like with her in a leather dress, I see it and I think Egeanin, so yeah, that's what that is. Bail Domon was lower on this list, even though Bail Domon and Egeanin are intertwined, their stories are intertwined, because I don't know if Bail Domon will make it in the show as a repeated and recurring character. I have the same thoughts about Egeanin, but because Egeanin's arc is so strong and so satisfying, I think she's a more integral character in the books and more integral to the story. So that's why she is higher than Bail Domon. Anyway, okay, moving on to number 2. And I think this might actually be the easiest role for people to see Jodie Whittaker in, based on her most recent role, that of the Doctor in Doctor Who. And okay, I do have to say this actually wasn't originally my idea. This idea came from my friend Bodi, from Just Somebody's Opinion, which is his YouTube channel. Check it out. He's awesome. Anyway, okay. Back in January, I tweeted about wanting Jodie in the Wheel of Time, and Bodi replied saying, someone hot and eccentric? I nominate Jodie Whittaker for Aludra. And okay, oh my god. If you've seen her play the Doctor, it's perfect. Aludra is, as Bodi said, in the book, she is canonically hot, and it should come as no surprise that I think Jodie absolutely fits that particular part of the character. And then, of course, Aludra comes into the story as a member of the Guild of Illuminators. I think she's the head. I can't really remember exactly. But I do remember her reaming Tammuz out, so I think she was in charge. But of course, anyway, okay. She gets expelled from the guild and has to just survive on her own. And so she just starts inventing shit. Like, it's a running gag in the books, her invention of matches and coming up with different names for them. And giving packs of them to Nynaeve, but then going, oh yeah, just be careful with those. I haven't quite figured them out yet. They might explode in your pocket. Probably not, but maybe. And then, of course, she invents modern weaponry. Well, mainly cannons. But we can see where they're going with that, right? She makes out with Matt, gives him a riddle, and then invents cannons. Aludra is just all around awesome. And her character is probably the most one-to-one with the Doctor. Or, okay, so no. The Doctor wouldn't invent cannons. She wouldn't make any kind of gun or weapon. So that's different. But if you take the weaponry out of it, their characters are pretty similar. Aludra is quick to adapt. She's inventive. She's quirky. She's hot. In short, it's really easy to see Jodie in this role. Aludra is a fan favorite character, and I think Jodie could fit her shoes really, really well. But of course, Aludra is not my number one. She's not my number one pick. If you followed me on Twitter, you probably already know because I am not subtle. But before I get to my number one, I want to list off some honorable mentions that I think that she would be amazing as, but didn't make this list of top 10, mainly because I think they're probably already cast and in season 2, which is filming right now. Let's start with Elida. Elida was actually the first character I thought of when trying to fan cast Jodie, for a lot of the same reasons as what actually is my number one. So basically just listen to my explanation for why I picked my number one pick. And it mostly, not 100%, but it mostly applies to Elida as well. But I'm pretty sure that Elida's already been cast, and I'm pretty sure it's this actress who was announced, but we didn't find out who she was playing. Another honorable mention is Varen. Varen is amazing. I've already said she's my favorite secondary character. I think she's everybody's, but she's much, much older than Jodie, of course. But Aes Sedai age differently, so I think that could easily work because, you know, we're dealing with magic and magic aging, so it's fine. Aes Sedai don't ever really look their age. And Varen, she's canonically, she's weird, she's quirky, she's absent-minded, she's always saying strange and inappropriate things, but then it turns out she's not nearly as absent-minded as we thought she was. She's got a lot going on. She's amazing, and I think Jodie would be a really fun casting for Varen, but again, I think she's already been cast, and I think it's this actress who was announced as at the same time as that other actress. I think actually she even knows Jodie. I think they were in Broadchurch together. And my third honorable mention is going to be Sheriam. Sheriam is a character that I think most people think they understand. She seems pretty basic, but as the story goes on, there's a lot more to her. There's stuff happening under the surface, and I don't know why I'm being so coy with this, but I've been majorly spoiling all other parts of the story, but whatever. Anyway, the reason that she's an honorable mention instead of on my list is because I think she's already been cast because of her function in the story. She's the mistress of novices, and I think season 2 of the show, which again, filming right now, is likely going to have a lot of the girls receiving their magic training at the White Tower. And if I'm right about that, then the mistress of novices would already need to be there. So yeah, I think Sheriam has probably already been cast, but no idea who she has been cast, like what actor has been cast in the role. Okay, so with those honorable mentions out of the way, let's move on to my number one on my list. My number one fan cast for Jodie Whittaker in the Wheel of Time is Moghedien. One of the reasons that Moghedien beats out Aludra on my own personal list is it's pretty basic. Moghedien is a much more important character in the story than Aludra. Aludra, while definitely a fan favorite, she is also definitely a secondary character at best. She is awesome and she's amazing, and I think she's necessary to the story because someone's got in at the cannons before the apocalypse. So I think Aludra will make the cast, but Moghedien is a major villain. She is a main antagonist for my favorite character, and once she's introduced, she's in the story pretty much constantly until the end. I mean, okay, there are some parts of the story where she sort of fades into the background, but I think she could easily be a constant presence in the show, and so that one very basic reason puts her above Aludra for me because Moghedien is a big role, and that would mean more Jodie Whittaker, which would be a delight to me. But the main reason I love the idea of seeing Jodie play Moghedien, especially right on the heels of her run as the Doctor, is that, in my view, much like how the idea, as I mentioned in my previous video, of seeing Jodie play Alviarin is very appealing to me because of how I see Alviarin as so opposite to Jodie's own personality. I see Moghedien as pretty much as completely opposite from the character of the Doctor as you can possibly get. Or at least the Doctor as realized by Jodie Whittaker, because I have not seen any of the other Doctors. She is my Doctor. So her iteration of the Doctor and Moghedien are just, they're opposite ends of the spectrum. So let's start with the basics on this. The Doctor, of course, inherently good, kind. Moghedien, on the other hand, evil, literal servant of the dark. She is actively working against the interests of humanity, trying to bring about the apocalypse and remake the world in the Dark One's image. So, you know, that. pretty opposite. But okay, if we go beyond that surface level and look at who Moghedien is, her backstory. Before she became a Forsaken, she did some sort of banking, financial stuff in the Age of Legends, where part of her job was to assess risk factors. Moghedien's entire identity, even the name she has as a Forsaken, the name Moghedien, means the spider, because she hides in corners and only attacks when she thinks no one can see. Her whole thing is to avoid risk. Moghedien will not try if she doesn't think she can win. The hell, even the cleansing of the taint, she went there and she just sat it out because she saw the others losing. And okay, you gotta give her props because she's right. She is one of very few, a very small list of Forsaken who actually survived the apocalypse. Okay, compare that to the Doctor. Again, or at least, 13, the 13th Doctor. The Doctor runs headlong into risk all the time. Sometimes with a plan, sometimes with half a plan, a lot of the time with a plan that changes halfway through. The Doctor is always ready to try. Moghedien, as I said, will not try unless she is, almost certain that she can win. And then let's move on to creativity. The Doctor is infinitely creative and willing to try anything. She isn't locked into one way of thinking. She'll take in new information and easily adapt to it. Moghedien? Not so much. Moghedien is an incredibly powerful channeler. She knows how to use the one power and use it really well, so that's what she uses. It's her go-to, and it's how Nynaeve beats her in the Panarch's palace. Moghedien relies on her tried and true method, the method that she knows works, and Nynaeve chucks something in her face. Moghedien is also arrogant. She thinks that she's the only one who understands what's going on, and okay, this is actually true of most of the Forsaken, to be honest, but I think Moghedien more than most because of the fact that she hangs back and just watches so often. And like I said, she might be right because, again, she survived the apocalypse, but she just watches and observes and takes in all of the information, and she thinks she's the only one who gets what's going on. And again, this is how Nynaeve beats her in the World of Dreams, because Moghedien gets arrogant. The Doctor, on the other hand, she has a healthy ego, a very, very healthy ego, but she's not arrogant. She listens to other people and is open to the possibility that she is wrong. And because of that, she is willing to change and adapt. There are countless other ways in which I see them as polar opposites. The Doctor is brave. Moghedien is a coward. The Doctor is open, to friendship and love and possibilities. And Moghedien is closed to everything, really. And the list just goes on. They are polar opposites. And I think it would just be amazing to see Jodie take on a role that is so opposite to the role that she just played, what is arguably her most famous role. She definitely can do it. I haven't seen every single thing that she's been in, but I've seen a lot of them. And she absolutely has the ability to play Moghedien, and she even looks the part. A while back, I tweeted this picture of Jodie side by side with this portrait of Moghedien, which at the time I called fan art. This portrait is by Ariel Burgess. And Ariel Burgess let me know that this isn't fan art. This was officially licensed. It was an officially licensed portrait of Moghedien from the Wheel of Time company or team. This is an official book canon image of Moghedien, and as strange as it seems, if you know her from Doctor Who, Jodie can actually look like this. Not that appearance really matters. I'm not really attached to the physical descriptions of the characters in books because my brain just doesn't work that way. Even Nynaeve, my favorite character, before the show gave me Zoe Robbins to imagine, Nynaeve in my mind was just, she's vaguely female-shaped with a braid. So, okay, I'm not attached to the physical description of Moggy, but come on, that's pretty remarkable. So, basically, to sum it up, I would love to see her play Moghedien because A, I think it would be amazing to see her play somebody so opposite to her most recent and most famous roles, role. B, I think she would slay in that role because she's really, really good at her job. And of course, see, it is a major role, so she would be on my TV a lot, and that would make me happy. Oh, and not only would she be on my TV a lot, she would be on TV with my favorite character because Nynaeve and Moghedien are major antagonists for each other. So yeah, that's it. That's my top 5 of the roles that I think that Jodie Whittaker could play and the roles that I would love to see her in in the Wheel of Time. What about you? Do you have any that didn't make my top 10 list, or do you have any other actors that you think you would love to see in the show? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my videos and you want to support me, please consider checking out my Patreon. I love and really, really appreciate my patrons. You guys mean so much to me. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you so much. And with that, I will end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.